Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Rudolph, and this is episode 73 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, brought to you by the one and only, the legendary Black Belt Magazine. And we just returned from the 2021 U.S. Open ISKA World Martial Arts Championships. I am here with a couple of champions. We've got Alex Mancillas and we've got Haley Glass. Alex Mancillas representing Team Paul Mitchell, Haley Glass representing Team Infinity. Haley had a very big event at the U.S. Open, winning double ISKA World Championships in her adult debut at the U.S. Open for women's forms and women's weapons. And Alex Mancillas had a strong showing as well. I think surprising some people by going all the way in the weapons, making it to the men's weapons final. And then what most people know Alex for is his fighting, where he represented Paul Mitchell very, very well. Had some great fights, came up a little bit short, but we know that he'll get him next time. And Alex, we're going to go into that a little bit as well. But first and foremost, for our Black Belt audience, I want to give each of you the opportunity to introduce yourselves a little bit. So Haley, ladies first, we'll start with you.
Well, as you guys know, my name is Haley. I'm on Team Infinity. As Jackson said, I'm 18 years old. I've been doing martial arts for about 12 years now, which is kind of crazy. I've been doing NASKA for I think this is my 9th year. I am a second degree black belt. I live in Orlando, Florida, and I'll be going to the University of Florida, go Gators. And yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you, Haley. I hope that anybody that's tuning in, meeting Haley for the first time, one of the things that I've always respected about Haley is that she's just a sweetheart. Like, whether she's like ringside and just like talking to some random fan or like interacting with competitors or whatever, she's always been so sweet and so kind and so compassionate. And I think that's one thing about Haley's personality that really stands out to a lot of people. Unlike this jerk, Alex, who we've also known. Alex is great. But anyway, so Alex, your turn. Introduce yourself a little bit.
So as you already know, my name is Alex Mancillas. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Brownsville, Texas. I started martial arts when I was about 4 years old. I've been doing it going on 16 years, competing on NASKA going on 10 years. Recently got picked up Paul Mitchell 2 years ago. We're going to be 2 years. And it's a family thing for me, so I enjoy what I do. And I actually finally registered for college today down at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to both of you for beginning your college journeys. I know that that's something that is obviously really important in this day and age, to get a college education. And given the goals that each of you have, I think it's fantastic that both of you are pursuing that route. As many tuning in know, I'm a Stanford University graduate, so I'm a huge advocate for, yes, go to college and get your education. It's not for everybody. It depends on what your goals are, but knowing some of the aspirations that these two have, I think it's important. And since I know these two well, I think that one thing that I want to point out to the audience is that, yes, these are both brand new adult competitors. This is both of their first full seasons that they're going into competing on the NASKA, or North American Sport Karate Association World Tour, as adults. And that's going to be a theme for the podcast over the next couple of weeks. We may have a different one thrown in between these two episodes, but I will go ahead and tease there's another episode coming up that features another few new faces in the adult division. But for today, we're focused on Alex and Haley. And so I also want to let you guys tell your story a bit about how you got started in the martial arts in the first place, because, you know, we're all sport karate athletes. We're all sport martial arts competitors. But the way that we become sport martial arts competitors is often very, very different, because we typically come from a traditional style and have to kind of, by luck, a lot of times discover sport karate and then fall in love with it. So Haley, we'll start with you. How did this whole martial arts journey start for you in the first place?
So I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my mom typically worked until late. So like I was in after school programs for hours after I finished school. And so she wanted to find a way to keep me active. We tried a bunch of other sports first, like soccer, gymnastics, and softball. And I wasn't good at any of them, and I really didn't like any of them either. So one day in my after school program, one of my friends, she told me that she was trying these karate classes. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I want to see. So I watched her take a class, and then I told my mom, I'm like, can I try it? You know, why not? It's at the same after school program that I was in. And so we tried it, and I ended up really liking it. It was more of a Shotokan, but it was just kind of to keep kids out of trouble type of thing. Like, it wasn't really a competition school. you did forms here and there, a little bit of sparring, but it was nothing too crazy. It was like an hour a day, then we went home. So from there, we decided, just because of my passion for it already at such a young age, I transferred to another martial arts school that actually had a really heavy focus on fighting. I spent a few years there. I started competing locally on a circuit called Blitz here in Florida. And that's where I saw like sport martial arts and more extreme and CMX forms and weapons. And I'm like, that is insane. Like, I want to try that. So I started trying to learn by myself. I did a few lessons with people like Marcel Jones and just other people around Florida. And after that, my mom's like, well, okay, you're really liking the sport karate stuff a little bit more than fighting. So we switched yet again to Florida Sports Martial Arts, which is where I'm at currently. I've been there for like 9 years maybe. And that's how I really got into, sport karate, more creative divisions. I watched Mark Canonizato and Caitlin Deschelle at the time compete, and I just realized that it was for me. So I trained really hard, and I still go there. I still train under William Canonizato, and that's kind of how I started NASKA and became who I am today. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's an awesome story. And for those of you tuning in that maybe aren't sport karate fans, because if you are a sport karate fan, you should know about Florida Sport Martial Arts Academy because of all the champions that they have produced over the years. Mark Canonizato, son of William Canonizato, kind of headlining that roster. They have produced so many great sport karate competitors. It's not even funny. And I think that Haley's being a little bit humble because a lot of the time in competitor stories, we hear like, oh yeah, like when I started, I wasn't very good or whatever. That was not the case for Haley. Maybe when she first started, but Haley was winning the grand championship at the US Open as an underbelt. And the reason that I know that is because back in 2011, which makes me feel old because I was already a black belt and competing in the black belt division. But back in 2011, the US Open had this special event where the underbelt grand champions got to present the ISKA world champions their trophies on stage. And so when I won at the time, what was my second US Open title, Haley was actually the competitor who presented me with that award. Do you remember that at all, Haley, or is that?
Oh my gosh, dude, I do. I remember competing at that US Open and winning the trophy. And then they told me, they're like, yeah, you're going to present I actually presented, I think, with Mr. Sharkey. And so we went up and I think it was you, Sammy, I think Danny was there, and I forgot the fourth competitor. I'm not 100% sure, but I was like so nervous. I came up and I was like shaking, and like, cause I had seen you perform and I'd seen all of you guys perform, and it was a big stage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many people looking at me. And I came up and I gave you the award, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like, I wonder if I'll ever be up here. I remember going backstage and seeing everyone practice and stuff, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And so fast forward, I think 2 years later, I was on for the first time on the ISKA stage, 2013. So dream came true, and I won this year. So that was exciting.
That is an awesome story. Definitely a coming of age, full circle story there. But anyway, now we'll switch over to Alex. How did you get started in the martial arts? You already mentioned it was a family affair. I know your mom was actually a competitor back in the day, a pretty good fighter, I might add. So go ahead and tell a little bit of your story and how you got involved in the first place.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a choice for me to start. Since you have said before, my mom, she's a NBL world champion. She's gone to Super Grands and won many times. She was a NASKA competitor. She's done bluegrass, I think diamonds as well. She's in a few tournaments. So at the age of 3, she kind of just threw me into class. And at first, I didn't listen. I was one of those, I wouldn't pay attention or anything like that. Then I waited another year, a couple of months, started at 4. Let's see if I listen this time. And I did. And I just did it at first as kind of not a choice kind of thing. And then I started competing at the age of 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth. And I just really like to fight. When I first started, I did not want to do forms for anything. And that's kind of funny now. It's kind of ironic, but I didn't want to do it at all. And then I go to one tournament down. It was the AOK State Championships. I was about 9 years old. I was having a fit because my mom was like, let's get ready to do forms. And my mom's instructor, one of our mentors, pulled me out of nowhere. Like, he was just sitting down in a chair and I was walking through in a fit. He pulled me and he said, boy, why are you crying? I said, because I don't want to do forms. And he said, did your mom tell you to do forms? And I said, yes, but I want to do it. And he goes, are you 18? Do you pay the bills and all that kind of stuff? I said, no. He goes, then you don't have a choice. So then after that, I pretty much continued training forms, weapons, and fighting the rest of my competition career. And then I started the TKO League when I was about 10 years old, which is the league down here in Texas, which I'm now a promoter of a tournament. And then I went to the US Open in 2011 as an underbelt. And I won the first time as an underbelt, just fighting though. I didn't do weapons yet. And then nobody really knows this, but you, Jackson, were the one that convinced me to do weapons on the NASKA circuit. So I actually started with the bow staff. So you convinced me to do weapons. And from then on, I just started competing weapons and fighting in the NASKA circuit. So the rest is kind of history. So yeah.
And I remember that first private lesson well, because it was back when you had like the shaved head and you had your
no hair, nothing, man. That's what it was.
That's great. But no, it makes me feel old, but it's really special to hear these stories of like how I was around when the two of you like first got started in this whole sport karate and traveling thing. It's really surreal for me to listen to it at this point in my career. And, you know, one of the most pivotal moments of my career personally was that shift to the adult division, because I feel like so many sport karate competitors spend their entire lives focused on getting to the adult division and being successful there, because that's where many of our first inspirations come from, right? A lot of my early inspiration was watching Lauren Carney and Casey Marks Nash in the adult division, watching Kalman Choka, Matt Emig, Mark Canadazato, Rudy Raynon in the adult division. And by the way, audience tuning in, forgive me because there's a storm going on outside. As you can tell, I'm not in my studio like normal. I'm still on the road. So hopefully that doesn't distract too much. But anyway, so now I want to talk about how pivotal of a moment this is in your careers moving to the adult division. We'll start with Haley, because technically you made your adult debut first at the Battle of Atlanta, where Alex did not compete for some reasons that we'll get into. But first, Haley, so Battle of Atlanta happens. Was it what you expected? Just kind of give me your reaction to that first run in the adult division, where, by the way, you also won double overall grand championships at the Battle of Atlanta before winning the double ISKAs. And I just say that because I know that Haley's too humble to come out and say it. But Haley did dominate that tournament as well. But Haley, was it what you expected being in the adult division?
There was, okay, especially because of COVID and how we didn't compete for like a year and a half, pretty much. I kind of didn't know what to expect, for the reason being that there are some people during the quarantine who have posted a lot, and like you've kind of seen, you know, what upgrades they've made, how they've improved, what they're doing new to their training, like they'll be posting about it. There's also been some competitors who have stayed really quiet and then came out and like wowed a lot of people, because it's like all of a sudden they got really good. So I kind of kept that in mind, and I'm like, there are some people who I know are being really quiet and who are going to come out and like destroy it. So I kind of came in with the expectations that, you know, everyone was going to bring their A game, of course, because it's, you know, first time competing back after a while. And so it was very nerve-wracking as well, because it was the adult division. And again, I didn't know what to expect. So I just made sure I trained as hard as I could, because I felt like that was all I could do. And then see what happened. So for my Friday divisions, my creatives, my musicals and extremes, those weren't as big of a change, because all the wonderful competitors I competed against moved up as well with me. So they were all 16, 17 and then moved up together. So like it was almost like our 16, 17 division all over again. So it didn't feel much different. But then come Saturday for the traditional divisions, that one was different, because I did have people I've never competed against, people who I've looked up to. Juliana, I competed with her in shred weapons. And so I knew that like, I was a little nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I did my best, and I ended up coming out with a win. So that was great. And then competing on stage 2 against like a 30+ competitor, it was weird for me, because I don't know, it's never happened before. So it was exciting, but I didn't really have many expectations coming in, not in a bad way. Like I knew everything was going to be much more difficult than our, 17 and under, but I kind of just came in with an open mind. It was very fun. I enjoyed it and I did really well. So yeah.
That's awesome. And, I love what you say there about going into it with an open mind and everything, but also how weird it was in the CMX divisions, that it kind of just felt like, your 16 to 17 ring all over again, because that was similar to my experience. How when I moved up into the adult division, my entire life I'd been like, oh man, like I'm going to go and compete against Matt and Calman and like all these guys. And then by the time that I was old enough to compete in the adult division, they were all retired. So it was a bunch of people who I had competed against before. But at the same time, you also still feel different, because now it's like the title. It's like you're not just like a kid who won the overall. It's like, no, you were the top adult competitor at that tournament, especially at Battle of Atlanta, where they did something good for the sport and gave the seniors that opportunity to compete in that bonus round against the 18 to 29 winner. I thought that was really special and a great way for those groups of competitors to kind of test their skills against one another. And I know that we've got a lot of senior competitors that watch the show and tune in that can drop some ideas in the comments about more ways that we can facilitate those divisions. But now I want to shift to Alex and talk about your adult debut, because it's very different moving from juniors to adults as a forms and weapons competitor compared to as a fighter. And you have the very unique experience, at least unique in the modern era, of doing both, right? Now, the reason that you didn't compete at the Battle of Atlanta like you intended to compete at was because, I'll just say this briefly for the audience, Alex may or may not have decided to put on a sauna suit and then go running in the Texas heat in the middle of the day, which caused him to suffer I don't know if it was an official heat stroke or an unofficial heat stroke, but yeah, official heat stroke that kept him out of competition until the US Open. Alex, I won't make you explain yourself on that one because I don't think you can, but I will. I was very fortunate to get to see you in some of your point fighting preparation for the US Open, sparring some rounds with Justin Ortiz, a generational talent in the lightweight division. And you yourself did a weight cut to make sure that you could compete on the lightweight half of the divisions at US Open. So tell us a little bit about what that jump was like as a point fighter, and maybe compare and contrast a bit, making that jump as a fighter compared to how you felt about it as a forms and weapons competitor.
So yeah, moving up to adults, it was a very different, I guess, mindset towards the preparation, because as a junior, I would say, oh, I'm gonna cut a few pounds, I'll cut weight a little bit. But at the end of by the time the tournament day came around, I was weighing the same, maybe 1 or 2 pounds, right? So this time it was like, no, you have to do it. I talked to my mom about it, talked to my nutritionist, and they said, no, we're gonna do it. You have no choice. So it was very, very mentally, it was tough mentally, besides the physical part of not eating as much and not snacking, all that kind of deal. It was different because towards the end of that weight cut, you just got to weigh in and then refuel and get in the right mindset of resetting. It's like, okay, now you got to fight with all the best fighters in the world. And in my mind, I knew I'm going in with the Sharks. It's not a game. So that was my mindset, my preparation, that I'm going to go in, have some fun, show all the adults that, hey, I'm here for a reason, right? Representing the best team in the world. Got my team, my family, my supporters alongside me. So I had some fun doing it, but it was a very unique experience, I would say. Similar because I've already moved around with a lot of the best fighters in the world. Justin, you mentioned him before. Ross, I've moved around with Willie before. So I'm of course, they didn't rock me when I was younger, but I got to feel it a little bit. Comparing it to the forms and weapons aspect, similar to what Haley said, it felt, because I moved up with my group as well, kind of competed with Jake. We had Rashad in there, Connor, and then competing against the legend Jackson Rudolph. That was very interesting, right? It was an honor to compete against you, Jackson, and I just had some fun sharing the ring with the best of the best. Going into the weapons divisions, I just had the mentality of, I'm gonna have some fun and put on a show and share the ring with everybody. So I had a blast.
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you for the kind words. That means a lot to me, especially at this stage in my career, having the opportunity to inspire, guys like you that are coming up and competing against me. That's what it's all about. I've told my students for years, and any of my students tuning in, this is a real life example. It's like, when I tell you that I don't want you to be as good as me, I want you to be better than me. I really mean that, because eventually I'm not going to be doing this anymore. And I want to see the sport continue to grow past what I could ever take it to. Right. And I'm going to be around forever, whether it's, helping out in tournaments, commentating, or maybe promoting in the future, or coaching, who knows what I'll be doing. But I'll always be around. And when I'm around for those years, I want to see this sport continue to get better and better. And Alex, that was the thing that impressed me most, is that, although I was able to take care of business and win that division, looking at my teammates in that division, I knew that when it was eventually time for me to step away, that our sport was in good hands, and especially Team Paul Mitchell was in good hands between yourself, Danny Edkin, and Jake Presley, who were all in that weapons final together, along with Haley's teammate, Connor Chasteen, who is an excellent talent as well. I was just really, really pleased to be able to share the ring with such great young talent. And so to elaborate on that a little bit, now, Haley, you dealt with a similar situation, right? Alex talked about moving into that forms and weapons division and facing someone who was an established champion like myself. You had a very similar challenge in front of you, having to go up against Sammy Smith, who I think that anybody tuning in that's ever watched Sport Karate knows that Sammy Smith is, I think I've used the term generational talent a couple of times in this podcast already, but that's what Sammy was. Dominant in the women's division, always a threat to win the overall grand championship, won just about every Sport Karate tournament that you can win. So Haley, talk a little bit about that kind of mindset shift, going from Atlanta, where it was a lot of competitors that you had competed against before, to now taking on this new challenge of the great Sammy Smith in the adult division at US Open.
It was definitely a big shift for sure. A lot of the people I train with and my students and just my teammates at Florida Sports Martial Arts can attest to how different like my training became, and just how, I guess, I don't know exactly how to put it, but I trained it much harder than I think I've ever trained for any other tournament like ever, just because when I was smaller, much like you were an inspiration to Alex and to me, Sammy was also one of those big inspirations. So I remember watching her in the 13, I watching videos in the 13 and under division, and then she moved up to 14, 17, and watching her like do really good, hanging out with you guys, sometimes, winning against the guys, and then moving into the adults and doing really well. So I'm like, I remember watching her do that and thinking to myself, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be just as good as her. So with that being said, having her be such a motivation to me all of these years, 10 years, then to now be able to compete against her, I was nervous. I was very nervous. I think my first division, I think I dropped. Like I was shaking, my hands were sweaty. Like it was, my mom's like, stop being nervous. Like, it's fine. Like, you're going to do good. But it was just, nerve wracking, because it's someone you've looked up to for so long. And then getting to compete against her, it was just a great experience. I knew she was going at it. She's been posting. She was, like I mentioned earlier, how some people were posting about their training and some weren't. I knew she was posting, and I was seeing what she was doing and how amazing she was looking. I know she came off of an injury, so she was coming back from that. So she was decided to compete for that reason. And then she knew I was coming into the division, so I just saw she was doing a bunch of extra type of training, hit trainings, intervals, and I'm like, all right, I really got to step it up. Got to go at it hard, which I did, and it paid off. But it's really fun to compete against her, and I look forward to doing it in the future again.
That's awesome. And that was one of the things that kind of built up my anticipation going into US Open, was each of your social media posts, because I remember it was at some point towards the end of quarantine. I was like scrolling through Instagram or whatever. And I saw a video that you posted that had like a black and white filter over it. And I don't remember what the caption is. I don't remember what the caption is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I remember like watching that clip and being like, Haley's twice as good as she was before the pandemic ever happened. And then also seeing Sammy make all the posts about, you know, how hard she was training and about how she was coming back and she was hungry and all this. I was like, this is going to be the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, because both of them are training ridiculously hard and they're both public about it. Like, we can see right in front of us how good of a matchup this is going to be. And so that was something that was pretty easy for the matchmakers at US Open to be like, whatever happens, this showdown's got to happen in the finals for forms and for weapons, which is something that makes competing on stage at the US Open that much more special, is that you have to be invited to compete there. You can't just, you know, win that day or win a division. I saw some people even after the tournament upset, like, oh, I won my division, I didn't get on stage. You know, it's winning one division doesn't get you a ticket on stage at the US Open. You have to have a proven track record of success that shows that you have a chance to beat whoever the defending champion is, or that you have a chance to hold that championship title, not just for 1 year, but to then come back the next year and attempt to defend that title. You have to prove that you are able to do that in order to be selected in the first place. And so to see those matchups between you and Sammy, both with the buildup and then the actual divisions, that was extremely exciting to watch, just as a fan of the sport. So now I want to open up a little bit to both of you. Was there anything that you would say surprised you, Haley, at Battle and the Open, and then Alex, of course, just at the Open? Was there anything that surprised either of you about the adult division? Something that wasn't the way you expected, or something you never even thought about that you realized? Anything like that?
I mean, at least for me, that's like a tough question, because I guess because I've been in ISKA for so long. Well, like, it feels like you've been in it for longer, but like, I've been in it for a few years, and I've seen the adult division, and I've kind of like just like witnessed the process of, like, even competitive, like you, moving from 14, 17 to adults, like seeing that transition, and then how you guys have the competition, in my opinion, is a little more heightened when you're in the adult division. You got a lot of competitors, and you have a really a bigger age bracket in comparison to like 14, 17 or 12, 13, etc. So just seeing that, I kind of had like, I kind of understood the process. Definitely, I kind of, you know, I forgot about it a little bit, but like going to the division, you do win money. So that was exciting. And that was like something I looked forward to, and now I'm here. So that was great. But other than that, I feel like I had a pretty good idea of how the process would be. So like, nothing surprised me too much, if that makes sense.
And that's something I want to add for the audience, because one thing I always tell people is that if you want to make money in martial arts, don't be a sport karate competitor, because we don't do this for fame. We certainly don't do it for money, because it's like, you could win the whole tournament, and then like right now, coming out of the COVID era, you could win the overall grand championship at an ISKA tournament and get $500, which, great. It's a blessing that we make anything. Like, it's fantastic that we get that money. But at the same time, you know, you could get 100th place at the Masters golf tournament and make like 10 grand or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, in the grand scheme of sports, we don't do a very good job of making money. So sometimes, legitimately, and this is, Haley, even after you've been in the adult division a few years, sometimes you'll win and then completely forget about the fact that there's any money involved, because we do it simply because we love going out there and testing ourselves against the best. And oftentimes that's what you get in the adult division at ISKA tournaments. Alex, unless you've thought of anything else, I also wanted to talk about specifically with you in the point fighting division. You had the interesting experience of, you actually got a rematch in your first round of the open weight, your first official ISKA tournament adult fight, fighting against Jason Latona, who had kind of beat you in a close one in Virtual Fight Tour. And so then you were able to kind of exact some revenge on him and then take a close win over him, which is just the start of a great rivalry between you two. Jason's an excellent fighter. Obviously, I think you're an excellent fighter. But you guys had history. You had fought each other before. I'm sure you'd fought even before Virtual Fight Tour as well, when you guys were in the junior division for years. So then you come off of that, where you get your revenge and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling good. Then you turn around and you fight a veteran of the adult division, Kevin Walker, right? Of the All-Stars, obviously one of the top fighters on the planet, one of the only fighters in recent memory to beat Bailey Murphy, as he did in the open weight at North Georgia Open. So Kevin Walker, obviously not somebody you can play with, and you would wind up seeing him both in the open weight and then taking him to overtime as you were working your way through the divisions, right? So just tell us a little bit about that, maybe the duality of like, oh, here's somebody that I fought like a couple months ago, and then, oh, now it's time for me to fight Kevin Walker.
So yeah, when I went up against Jason, I kind of already knew what to expect, right? I had the mindset of already my game plan, my strategy, and whatnot. So we had a good fight, great fight, and moving on to K Swift, and I was like, oh snap! I was like, this is Kevin Walker. This is All Stars JPM kind of deal. So I was like, all right, here we go. And I'm gonna be honest, I was a little hesitant throughout my matchup, right? I felt myself like hesitating on some kicks, my takeoffs. And then after the fight was over, after he won, in my mind, I was like, what happened? And I was like, the realization of just moving to adults hit me. You know, I was like, there's no games no more. And then, of course, that winning money kind of deal was on the side, right? But that's another focus or whatever. And then I got to see him the next day, and I was like, okay, this is going to be different. I was like, Alex, you can fight better than that. No hesitation. This is what you've worked for. This is why you got picked up. Time to represent. So I went out there and I fought very, very different against him. And then we went into overtime, and he got that last point. So it was an interesting kind of switch. And it was weird how I got him open weight and then point. I was okay, time for my revenge or whatever. But it was good to kind of see him twice, get the feeling of the adult division, just get that experience. It's experience. That's what I'm going up against. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I feel like oftentimes, somebody said this to me over the weekend. I can't remember who it was that I heard say it, because I wish I could give them credit for this, but it was great what they said. And if you're whoever said this to me, drop it in the comments and claim this quote. They talked about most competitors, it takes 2 or 3 years to understand fighting in the adult division. Like fighting in the junior division is very different from fighting in the adult division. And whoever it was that was telling me this talked about how quickly Bailey was able to make that adjustment, how it looks like Tyson Ray is going to be able to make that adjustment quickly, as we saw him in action at the Battle of Atlanta. And then it almost sounds like with that switch that flipped between your first fight with Kevin Alex and then your second fight, maybe that was the switch that you needed to flip. That was the, wait, this is the adult division. This is how I need to handle things differently. And as you continue to go to more and more events, we'll see kind of you grow up in front of us as a point fighter and become, in my eyes, I think that you will become one of the best in the world. You just got to keep making the improvements and making the adjustments, and your time will come because your talent is undeniable. I wanted to bring up, while we're on the Alex Mancillas train, I wanted to bring up one more thing before I forgot. In the forms and weapons, I know we're flip-flopping back and forth. So, hey, if you like forms and weapons and point fighting, this is the episode for you, because we're flipping back and forth like at the snap of a finger. But anyway, so in the weapons final, you did something I really, really liked. And it had nothing to do with your form, which was a great form, by the way. But you switched to a white uniform top with the black pants, which was reminiscent to me of like a Rudy Raynon and his Kama form, because he would frequently wear the white top with the black pants. Mark Canizzato did it a few times after he got on the team. So, Alex, where did that decision come from? Was there strategy in there? Was it something you've been wanting to do for a while? Was it spur of the moment? Where did that come from?
A little bit of actually all that combined, to be honest with you. So the first part of it was strategy, or not, I don't want to say strategy, but talk to one of my coaches and mention how white would make me stand out, right? Just kind of the background of the Open is all black and kind of deal. So one, I want to stand out, and two, kind of be different. Everybody, of course, had the all black. And I was like, all right, let me change it up a little bit and also throw it back to Rudy Raynon. Because I learned from Tyler learned from Rudy kind of deal. So throwing it back, and then really just to be different. And it was honestly a decision in that moment, like probably like half an hour before I went up, because I had my black uniform in my bag and I had the white uniform in my hand too. Like, I don't know which one to put on. I was like, you know what? Let's be different a little bit. And I threw it on and had some fun.
That's awesome. So you had the black uniform in your bag, the white uniform in your bag. You just forgot your helmet and gloves, right?
Yes, that's actually what happened.
Now, for those of you tuning in that don't know the background of this, Alex left his helmet and point fighting gloves.
So if anybody sees a pair of gloves, please ship them back to me.
Yeah, those are already on eBay, bro. Google it. Somebody's already got Keith Mitchell gloves up on eBay. Anyway, so now next thing I want to shift to as we kind of approach the latter part of the show here. Now that you guys have both had that experience of making the jump to the adult division, and each of you found success, Haley with your double Battle of Atlanta Grands and your double ISKA titles, which is unprecedented, by the way. Like that is, I want to stress to our audience that like that doesn't happen. And then Alex representing yourself very well in the fighting division and making it into the weapons final in the first place is an incredible accomplishment your first year as an adult. So with the success that each of you have had, Haley, we'll go with you first. What advice would you give to those 16, 17-year-old competitors right now who are preparing for their move into the adult division to face you guys?
I would definitely, I guess, because it worked for me, definitely reevaluate your training regimen and see where you can make improvements, because I think that was the biggest game changer for me. Thinking back to my last year, 16, 17, or like 2019, and the start of 2020 at AKA, I would just like train my forms and I would rep them, and I'd, do some drills for karate and stuff, my tricking and whatnot. But that was kind of all I did. And that was all my training consisted of. And like you mentioned, I kind of, with the switching up of my training, made a really big improvement in kind of a short span of time. You were saying you watched the video, and I looked a lot better than I did last time I competed in 2020 at AKA. So I started going to the gym, lifting a little bit. Anybody who's like, oh, lifting is gonna make you slow and stuff, it didn't, because I actually got a little bit faster. So lifting, adding HIIT trainings, like interval trainings, just kind of get that heart rate up, work the endurance and cardio, and then repping the forms and making sure like your nutrition is good and like your diet is healthy and you're not eating junk food and things like that. That I think made the biggest difference in my performance. And so I would say, if that's not stuff you're doing right now, maybe start thinking about it, because it'll make a big difference, especially making a big jump where the adult division is pretty stacked and it's only going to continue to get even better. So yeah.
One thing I love that you said there, Haley, rep your forms. And to me, this isn't rocket science, right? Like I have so many students now that they're like, oh yeah, I train my sections. I'm like, I didn't ask if you train your sections. I asked if you ran full forms. Sections are an excellent way to supplement your training, but if you're not running full forms, you're not truly preparing yourself for what it's going to feel like in the ring. But I digress. Alex, your turn. What advice would you have for the younger competitors moving up, whether it's for forms and weapons or for point fighting or both, or is that advice any different?
So on the forms and weapon aspect, adding on to what Haley was saying, besides upping your training, just like you said, run your forms, right? Sections can only take you so far, because at the end of the day, you're going to run a form in that ring, right? So rep those forms. Another thing is, one thing that helped me out was the mental aspect of it. To keep telling myself, or I have to remind myself that I'm training for a reason. I'm going out there for a reason, and that's to perform, give it my best, and hopefully go out there and win, right? So don't be afraid. And there's one thing that my uncle told me before he passed away that helped me out. He told me, be bold and be you, right? You were born to stand out and be different. So you don't have to fit in like everybody else. Stand out, be different, work hard, and never, ever give up, and bring your A game, because the adults is no joke.
That's an awesome message. I love that. So, hey, anybody tuning in, rewind that a little bit, screen record, share that everywhere you can find it. Great message there from Alex. So thank you for that. Now, as we get closer to the end of the show here, I want to ask an easy question that might have a more difficult answer. Haley, we'll start with you. What was your favorite moment at US Open? Like for me, I have so many memories that I make, whether it's on the mat, off the mat, whatever, just being at US Open because of how important of a tournament it is and how many different things go on. So what was the most significant thing to you this weekend? What do you remember the best from the 2021 US Open?
That's a tough one, because because we've been away from it for so long, like all of it was just amazing. Like it was just, the environment was great. Just being there with everyone who I haven't seen in such a long time was amazing. But I haven't competed on the ISK stage for 3 years because 2020 didn't happen. Last time I competed was 2018. I didn't compete in 2019 because I was injured. I injured my shoulder. So like the last tournament that I was, I was at the US Open, but I didn't compete. And so I remember like watching the night show and I'm like, man, like I really want to be up there right now. And then COVID happened. So just being there and being back on the stage felt amazing. And part of it, in my opinion, part of my favorite part every year of competing on ISK stage is, since I'm from Orlando, all of like the people I train with and my friends from Florida, from my karate school, all of my students, they're always all there in the night show. So the energy is just unreal. Like I hear a lot of my friends, my best friends, my instructors cheering for me, which I doesn't normally happen because they don't do NASCAR, they don't travel like that. So just having their support and kind of hearing them cheer for me as I'm competing, it's a really good feeling, and it's hard to explain. But I think just kind of having them by my side as I'm doing my thing on the stage was the best part for me.
That's awesome. So having that team around you, the people from your hometown, from your school, there to support you, that's always, some of the best memories. I know, Alex, you know how this feels being a Paul Mitchell member. That's something that at any Paul Mitchell event, we always try to rally around each other and make sure that our family is always there for our teammates, right? So Alex, I feel like you might say something similar, but I'll let you go ahead. What was your favorite moment of the weekend? Or if it is something like that, maybe give us two.
Yeah, I think I got to give more than one. I don't know. One is very tough. I'll go through a couple moments, but not too much because I don't want to ramble on forever. I can talk forever. But the first would probably have to be fighting with my whole squad behind me. I had been waiting for that day for the longest time, and I'm pretty sure you know, I've told all the coaches I can't wait till the day I fight with my entire squad behind me, hearing all the noise, the energy, the cheers. It was just awesome. And then sometimes I would even score, and like on my way back, I would glance back at the team and feed off of that energy. So that was something I was so looking forward to. Also, seeing my students that I've trained compete on that stage at US Open. Starting with Philip. I started Philip on the weapons, on his commas, and to see him rock that stage, it was almost an emotional moment for me. And also Dante rocking that stage, it was nice. And it's just, I couldn't put it into words, seeing them rock that stage and knowing that that was one of their goals. And they actually got to rock it before I did, which is really, really cool. And then of course, my favorite would be me performing on stage for the first time. It felt so surreal. Like it happened so quick, but like I enjoyed every single moment. As soon as I walked up, I was like, okay, here we go, time to have some fun, and then just hearing all the cheers, all my friends, my supporters, my teammates, it was an experience like no other.
Those are beautiful memories. And for context, for those of you tuning in, Alex is referring to Philip Brumet, who was in the 14 to 17 weapons and forms division. He made it on stage twice, but particularly in that 14 to 17 weapons division, which that division was insane with Philip Brumet, Mason Bumba, Riley Tracy with the double bow former had the unfortunate drop, but he was very, very good up until that point. Benjamin Jones, eventual champion Dawson Holt. I think that was everybody, right? Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody out because that's how good that division was. But that division was insane, and everybody threw down. And then also Dante Rodriguez of Team All Out, which is a new team of yours, right, Alex? That maybe you want to give a little bit of a pitch to Team All Out or a shout out.
Yeah, huge shout out to all the Team All Out members. Ashley Lopez bringing back a couple of seconds and thirds in the 10-11 girls division. Chelsea, who competed against Haley, I believe she brought back a third and created non-bladed, if I'm not mistaken. And then Dante bringing back multiple first and seconds and thirds and rocking the stage. So huge shout out to all them.
That is awesome. And so now, next thing that I want to shift to as I look at my handy dandy list of questions on my phone here. So we've talked a lot about, the preparation for US Open and what US Open was like. And we've talked about the present. We've talked about this stage in your careers and shifting to the adults and what that means for you. Now I want to speak a little bit about the future, because with the two of you already having achieved so much, what's next? Again, we'll start with Haley. What are some of your biggest goals moving forward from here?
I definitely over the course of the last year and a half, have started working with a lot of really great new talent that is now making their way in their debuts in NASKA. One of them, as you've worked with him, Zeke Gomez, went up there, won his overall, and then went on stage. Unfortunately, he dropped, but he still killed it. And so another one of my students, Savannah Augusto. So working with them and then seeing them finally really get to go and do their thing, and the US Open and at Battle just inspired me to want to continue to do the same thing. So like, I really want to help bring them up. And it's something that you said earlier, that you want your students to be better than you. And that's exactly how I feel towards mine. I want them to go up, do better things than I have, just kind of kill it and do whatever they dream of. And I'm always trying to stress to them that anything is possible. When I was small, like I mentioned earlier, I dreamt of being on the ISKA stage, of winning and of doing NASKA and, being in movies, which I did. And so I just like to really stress to them that you can do all those things. And I want to help you to do that. I want to be there and I want to guide you and mentor you in any way that I can. So to continue to do that will definitely be a goal of mine, as well as over the last year and a half with COVID. Of course, travel was shut down. And so I had plans of going to places like Puerto Rico and Mexico to do seminars and inspire other athletes and to compete with people across the world who are sometimes unable, like just great talent, I think. And a lot of those kids are unable to come to the US to compete with us. And that's such a shame. But getting to go over to those other countries to then compete with them and see how great they are, that was something that I was really looking forward to. So I hope that now that things are better, I can get out there and do those things, go to those countries, compete with those guys, and inspire in any way I can.
Absolutely. You talk about kind of sport karate overseas. There's a ton of sport karate talent to be found overseas. I remember years ago, I think I went 2 or 3 years in a row, did seminars down in Guatemala, and they produced some excellent bow talent. People know about Guatemala sport karate for their point fighting, right? Guys like Coca Guzman and the Latona brothers and so on and so forth. But they got some bow guys coming up in Guatemala down there as well. And of course there's others as well out in Europe, Ireland, the UK, producing more and more sport karate talent, both on the forms and weapons side and on the point fighting side. On the point fighting side, they have Elijah Evero, which is about as good as you get, right? So talking about the UK. But anyway, I could go on and on about where different talent's coming from forever, because I'm a nerd about that stuff. But you're absolutely right. Coming out of the COVID era, I think that's something that all sport karate coaches that travel and teach internationally are looking forward to, is just being able to do that again. And then I'll go ahead and plug both Haley and Alex. I've seen both of them teach. They're both excellent instructors. So if you've got a student that needs private lessons, if you've got a school that needs a seminar, go ahead and hit them up on social media, get them booked, because they do a great job. Both of them teach commas. They both teach tricking, open hand. Alex can do some fighting as well. Haley's got some other skill sets too. So be sure to reach out to them if you guys are interested. Another shameless plug for Haley there, because Haley, you just casually mentioned that you were in movies, right? You were in Logan doing a little bit of acting, a little bit of stunts, right? In the Logan film. Anything else that we need to mention there? Or was Logan like the big one so far?
Logan was the big one, and then America's Got Talent, but that wasn't really stunts. That was just performance, but that was still cool too.
That's right. TV's TV, so making it on America's Got Talent, also a big deal. So congratulations on that success. Again,
Thank you.
Shameless plug there. And then Alex, goals for you moving forward.
Well, I'm just getting started. So I got a couple overalls that I want to chase, not just in the point sparring division, but in the weapons. I want to be able to win both overalls at multiple events, multiple NASKA tournaments, be able to go travel a little internationally and win titles overseas and around the world. But I also want to leave a legacy behind, kind of similar to what Haley had said and you had said, of how you want your students to be better than you. Right. I want my students to do it as well, but not just in the martial arts world. But whatever they want to be, they can chase it. They can be the best version of whatever they want to be. I want to be able to help them. Right. That's why we're here. We're here to compete. We're here to inspire, motivate, and be the difference. Right. So I want to do that for them and help grow the sport, and also represent JPM the best that I can. Well, look good with the hair. You know what I'm saying? So, no, that's kind of what I want to leave behind.
That's an awesome message, a great take-home message. I don't know if there's much that we can end the show on that's better than that. Great little closing monologue there from you, Alex. But I still want to open the floor. If either of you have any other closing thoughts or comments that you want to share, things that you're looking forward to in the sport karate world coming up soon, feel free. Any closing thoughts or comments, Haley, and then Alex.
Closing thoughts and comments. Well, one, I'm excited for the rest of the year. Hopefully it still happens. Hopefully we'll see some people that we haven't seen in a while compete. I'm looking forward to that. I missed some of the faces I haven't seen in battle or US Open and we're really good. Also just kind of what, Alex was saying, and I feel like we all think this as martial artists who are kind of doing really good right now, is that keep on training, like keep on doing your thing, keep on trying your best, not only in karate, do good in school, be good at home, like try to set the best example for others as you can. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be the best person I can be, just to be an example and a light for other people. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, excited to see what the rest of this year, what next year holds. Things are getting better, so hopefully we're like really back to normal by the time next season comes. Yeah.
Great. So a great message from Haley, and then now Alex, what do you want to finish things up with?
Very, very similar. Looking forward to the end of the season, what it holds, and then next season. Full season to go out, compete, kick butt, have some fun, right? And just looking forward to see everybody kill it too, and connect with my karate family. That's all, man. That's all. Represent the team, have fun, spread my knowledge, and keep doing some karate.
Awesome. I love that. And for those of you tuning in, both of these athletes have very bright futures. Haley looking to follow in a long line of great women's competitors who have been able to win on both sides, the forms and the weapons. We look at most recently Sammy Smith and Mackenzie Emery. You go back a few years, you get Caitlin Deschelle. You go back, you have Lauren Carney and Casey Marks Nash. All of these great, Ming Lu, if you want to go back a little bit further as well. All of these great women's champions that could win both in the forms and the weapons division. Haley is trying to etch her name and her own legacy into that list of champions. And then Alex, I believe if you are able to accomplish that goal of winning weapons and point fighting at the same tournament, I think you'd be the first person to do that since Ross Levine. I can't think of anybody else that's done that at an ISKA event in recent memory. Back in the day, it was more popular. You had you guys like Mike Bernardo that could do it. Obviously, the GOAT himself, Kevin Thompson, did it on a regular basis, right? But in recent memory, Ross Levine's one of the very, very few that can win in point fighting and in forms and weapons. So Alex is looking to add his name to that legacy of those competitors that were very rare and that they could win both weapons and point fighting. And by the way, Alex can do forms too, so maybe we'll see him sliding into that extreme forms division, trying to cop some wins there as well. But last thing I want to say is just thank you both so much for your time, coming off of a big week for both of you at US Open. You guys have a cheerleader in me for the rest of your careers. I got a ton of respect for both of you, and I can't wait to watch you guys continue to grow up in this sport and become not only the champions of today, but the champions of tomorrow as well. To our viewers, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that share button. Stay tuned in the coming weeks. Like I said, we're going to get some more new faces in the adult division. Also, we're going to get some other pretty cool guests on the show in the near future. So stay tuned. Make sure that you subscribe to the Jackson Rudolph podcast on YouTube. Make sure that you like and follow our Facebook page at the Jackson Rudolph podcast. And last but not least, make sure you follow Black Belt Magazine, the host of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. That's where we live stream every single Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Be there or be square. I'm Jackson Rudolph. This has been episode 73 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, and I'll see you next time.